Hey there. Looks like you're diving into the world of risk and insurance.
That's right.
Don't worry, we're here to help you navigate these sometimes complex concepts
Yeah.
based on the materials you've provided.
Okay.
It seems like you're interested in understanding the fundamentals of risk,
Right.
different types of risks,
Yes.
and how insurance plays a role in mitigating them.
Uh-huh.
We've got some fascinating insights to share.
It's fascinating how much we navigate uncertainty every single day without even realizing it.
Okay, so let's start with uncertainty.
Okay.
On the surface, it seems pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Life is full of surprises.
It is.
But the sources you provided actually dig a bit deeper.
Right. They make a distinction between two types of uncertainty.
Oh, okay.
Subjective uncertainty is basically what we don't know because we haven't looked into it yet.
Okay.
Objective uncertainty, on the other hand, is baked into the situation itself, no matter how much information we gather.
So let me see if I've got this straight. If I'm planning an outdoor event and I don't know if it will rain, that's subjective uncertainty.
Right.
I can check the forecast and reduce that uncertainty.
Exactly.
But even with the best weather report,
Yeah.
there's always a chance of a freak storm.
Right.
And that's the objective uncertainty part.
That's a great example. We can reduce subjective uncertainty with more information,
Uh-huh.
but objective uncertainty is always there, like a wild card.
Okay.
And that's where risk enters the picture.
Okay, so it's not just about bad things happening.
Right. One of the sources defines risk as objective uncertainty that we can measure with probability. It's about the range of possible outcomes, both good and bad.
But one of the sources also had this other definition,
Uh-huh.
the action of testing one's luck.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool way to put it, right?
It is an interesting way to think about it. It reminds us that we often choose to take risks, whether it's trying a new restaurant or investing in a new venture.
Now that we've got uncertainty and risk on the table,
Uh-huh.
how do we actually wrap our heads around all the different types of risks out there? The sources get into a lot of detail on classifying risks, and I have to admit, it started to feel a bit overwhelming.
I hear you. Let's try to break it down. Sometimes it's helpful to think about who or what is affected.
Is it a risk to you personally, like health risks?
Okay.
Or is it a risk to your possessions, like a house fire?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the risk of harming someone else,
Yeah.
which falls under liability.
Okay, I see. So instead of getting lost in all the categories, we can focus on the impact.
Yeah.
Personal, my stuff, or other people. That makes it much easier to grasp. But what about the other ways to think about risk?
Well, another way to categorize risk is by thinking about whether there's a chance for gain alongside the potential for loss.
Okay.
Some risks, like gambling or investing, are what we call speculative risks.
Right.
They have the potential for both upside and downside.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are pure risks, like accidents or illnesses.
Where there's no possibility of gain, only the chance of something bad happening.
That makes sense. So gambling is a speculative risk because you could win big.
Yeah.
But pure risks are more about protecting ourselves from loss.
Right.
And the sources you shared talk about managing these risks,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Is that where we're headed next?
Now that we have a sense of the different types of risks out there,
Uh-huh.
let's explore how we can navigate them.
So we've got this map of the risk landscape.
Yeah.
But how do we actually navigate it? I'm curious,
Uh-huh.
how much of this is about our individual personalities and how we approach risk?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The sources talk about something called risk propensity,
Okay.
which is basically how comfortable we are with taking risks.
Right.
Some people are naturally more inclined to take a gamble,
Yeah.
while others prefer to play it safe.
Right.
It's like that friend who's always up for an adventure
Yes.
versus the one who meticulously plans every detail.
Totally. I can definitely think of people in my life who fit those descriptions.
Right.
But it's not just about personality, right?
No.
Our experiences and backgrounds must play a role too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our past experiences, especially with financial matters, can shape our risk tolerance.
Right.
For example, someone who grew up during a period of economic instability
Yeah.
might be more risk averse later in life.
It makes sense that our personal history would influence how we perceive and handle risks.
Uh-huh.
But regardless of our individual comfort levels. It sounds like we all need some tools to manage those risks effectively.
Yeah.
The sources mention something called aseguradoras de riesgos, right?
Yes, that's the Spanish term for risk management.
Okay.
And it's a whole field dedicated to understanding and minimizing the negative impacts of uncertainty.
Okay, so it's not just about avoiding risk altogether,
Right.
but more about having a strategy to deal with it.
Exactly.
What are some of the key approaches that people use?
Well, the sources highlight three main measures: avoidance, prevention, and prevision.
Okay.
Avoidance is the most straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
You simply steer clear of the risky activity.
So if I'm terrified of flying, I just wouldn't get on a plane.
Right.
Problem solved. But that's not always practical, is it?
Exactly.
Mm.
Avoidance isn't always feasible or desirable.
Okay.
Prevention, on the other hand,
Yeah.
focuses on taking steps to reduce the likelihood of a negative event.
Right?
Think about wearing a helmet while biking,
Okay.
or getting regular checkups to catch health issues early on.
Okay, so we're not eliminating the risk entirely,
Right.
but we're taking action to make it less likely that something bad will happen.
Exactly.
What about this third approach, prevision?
Prevision is all about being prepared for the financial impact if the risk does occur.
Okay.
There are two main ways to do this: saving and insurance.
Save, that's pretty basic, right?
Yeah.
Like setting aside money for unexpected expenses or a rainy day. We've all heard that advice before.
It is a fundamental principle,
Yeah,
but it's also a form of prevision.
right.
You're essentially self-insuring by putting money aside to cover potential losses.
Makes sense. And I'm guessing insurance is like a more formalized version of that, right?
Exactly.
Where everyone pools their resources to share the burden of risk.
Exactly. Imagine a big pot of money that everyone contributes to. If someone experiences a loss, they can draw from that pot to help cover the costs.
So it's like a giant rainy day fund for the whole group?
Right.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
But how does it work in practice? How do insurance companies fit into all of this?
Insurance companies manage these pots of money
Mm-hmm.
and take on the responsibility of paying out claims when insured events occur.
Okay.
They use complex calculations and data analysis to determine the likelihood of different risks
Mm-hmm.
and set premiums accordingly.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Premiums? What are those exactly?
Premiums are the payments individuals make to the insurance company in exchange for coverage. It's like a membership fee that gives you access to the shared pool of resources.
Okay, that makes sense. So everyone chips in,
Uh-huh.
and if something happens, the insurance company uses those funds to help those who experience a loss.
Right.
But doesn't that create a situation where people might take more risks
Yeah.
because they know they're insured?
That's a great question, and it brings up a concept called moral hazard.
Moral hazard.
It's the idea that when people are protected from the full consequences of their actions,
Okay.
they might be more likely to take risks.
That reminds me of when I got my phone insured. I have to admit, I
Oh.
definitely stopped being as cautious about where I put it down.
Right.
But insurance companies must have ways to address this, right?
You're right, they do.
Okay.
They can't just let people be reckless because they're insured.
Exactly.
Insurance contracts often include things like deductibles
Right.
and coverage limits to encourage responsible behavior.
Right.
For instance, if you have car insurance and get into an accident, you might have to pay a deductible before the insurance kicks in.
So it's like a shared responsibility. The insurance company provides a safety net,
Right.
but individuals still have a financial incentive to avoid risky behavior.
Precisely. It's a balance.
Okay.
And on the flip side, there's another interesting challenge that insurance companies have to deal with called adverse selection.
Adverse selection.
Yeah.
Okay, that one sounds a bit intimidating.
It's a big word.
What's that all about?
Adverse selection happens when the people who are most likely to need insurance
Okay.
are also the ones most likely to buy it.
Right.
Think about it. Someone who knows they have a health condition
Yeah.
is probably more likely to sign up for health insurance
Uh-huh.
than someone who feels perfectly healthy.
That makes sense. But
Yeah.
wouldn't that make it harder for insurance companies to stay afloat?
It's definitely a challenge.
If they're mostly insuring people who are likely to make claims,
Yeah.
wouldn't that drive up the cost for everyone?
That's exactly the challenge.
Yeah. Even those who are lower risk.
Insurance companies have to find ways to manage these risks and set premiums in a way that's fair and sustainable.
Okay.
And that's where regulation often comes into play.
So the government steps in to make sure the system works for everyone,
Uh-huh.
both the individuals who need insurance and the companies providing it.
Uh-huh.
It seems like there are a lot of moving parts.
There are. And it gets even more complex when you consider how the insurance industry is constantly evolving
Right.
to address new and emerging risks,
Okay.
like those related to climate change, cybersecurity,
Right.
and artificial intelligence.
It's fascinating to think about how insurance will need to adapt as our world changes.
It is.
But before we dive into the future,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Uh-huh.
How do we apply all of this knowledge to our own lives?
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah.
from basic definitions to the inner workings of insurance. But how do we bridge the gap between theory and practice?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right?
Understanding the concepts is a great first step,
Okay.
but the real value lies in applying them to our daily decisions.
So how do we do that? Where do we start?
Well, it might sound simple, but I think one of the most effective ways to bridge that gap
Yeah.
is to start by thinking about our own attitudes toward risk.
Okay.
We talked about risk propensity earlier,
Right.
but it's worth revisiting.
Okay.
How comfortable are you with taking risks?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical details.
Right.
But ultimately, our
Yeah.
decisions are influenced by our own personal comfort levels with uncertainty.
Exactly.
Okay.
And once you have a better understanding of your own risk tolerance, you can start applying that awareness to specific areas of your life.
Right.
Take financial decisions, for example.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out the best way to manage my money, whether it's saving, investing,
Right.
or even just budgeting for everyday expenses.
Think about your savings goals.
Oh.
How much risk are you willing to take on when it comes to investing your money? Someone with a higher risk appetite
Yeah.
might be comfortable putting their money into stocks,
Right.
hoping for big returns,
Uh-huh.
even if there's a chance of losing some of it.
Right.
But someone who's more risk averse
Yeah.
might prefer safer options like bonds,
Okay.
even if the returns are lower.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like choosing between a roller coaster and a leisurely train ride.
Right.
Both will get you to a destination,
Uh-huh.
but the experience is vastly different.
That's a great analogy.
Think.
And this same principle applies to other financial decisions,
Okay.
like buying a house,
Mhm.
starting a business,
Right.
or even deciding whether to purchase an extended warranty on a product.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we're taking calculated risks that align with our comfort levels
Exactly.
while also being mindful of the potential downsides.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's where understanding the concepts of risk management and insurance can be incredibly valuable.
Okay.
It's not about eliminating risk altogether.
Right.
That's often impossible.
Yeah.
But about mitigating it in a way that allows us to pursue our goals
Uh-huh.
without being paralyzed by fear.
I love that. It's like we're equipped with a new set of tools
Yeah.
and a more informed perspective to navigate the uncertainty that's an inherent part of life.
You know, this whole conversation has made me think about the broader implications of risk and insurance, too.
Oh.
It's not just about individual decisions.
Right.
It's also about how we manage risk as a society.
Right.
Think about the role of government regulations,
Yeah.
social safety nets,
Right.
and even things like disaster preparedness.
That's a great point. Insurance and risk management play a role in so many aspects of our lives, from our personal finances to the way we address global challenges like climate change.
Right.
It's truly a fascinating and interconnected web.
It really is. And as we wrap up this deep dive,
Right.
I think the biggest takeaway is this.
Mm-hmm.
While uncertainty is a given,
Right.
risk is something we can learn to understand and navigate effectively by developing our own risk management strategies
Yeah.
and being aware of the tools available to us, like insurance.
Right.
We can approach the future with a sense of informed confidence.
I couldn't agree more.
Good.
We've covered so much ground today, and I feel like I have a whole new framework for understanding and approaching risk.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to change the way I make decisions moving forward.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, the journey of learning is ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more to discover about ourselves, the world around us,
Right.
and the fascinating interplay between uncertainty, risk, and the choices we make.
And on that note, we'll leave you with
Yeah.
one final thought to ponder. As technology continues to advance at an incredible pace, what role do you think artificial intelligence and data analysis will play in shaping the future of insurance? Will it make risk assessment more accurate and personalized?
That's a good question.
Will it change the way we think about coverage and premiums?
Keep those brain gears turning. And until next time, happy deep diving.